Ken James and Jason McKittrick. Brought to you by Cryptocurium.
In a dream, Corinne saw the city in the valley, and the seacoast beyond, and the snowy peak overlooking the sea, and the gaily painted galleys that sail out of the harbor toward the distant regions where the sea meets the sky. In a dream it was also that he came by his name of Corains, for when awake he was called by another name. Perhaps it was natural for him to dream a new name, for he was the last of his family, and alone among the indifferent millions of London, so there were not many to speak to him and remind him who he had been. His money and lands were gone, and he did not care for the ways of people about him, but preferred to dream and write of his dreams. What he wrote was laughed at by those to whom he showed it, so that after a time he kept his writings to himself and finally ceased to write. The more he withdrew from the world about him, the more wonderful became his dreams, and it would have been quite futile to try to describe them on paper. Corains was not modern and did not think like others who wrote. Whilst they strove to strip from life its embroidered robes of myth and to show in naked ugliness the foul thing that is reality, Corains sought for beauty alone. When truth and experience failed to reveal it, he sought it in fancy and illusion, and found it on his very doorstep, amid the nebulous memories of childhood tales and dreams.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to another episode of Learning Lovecraft. I am your host, Jason McKittrick, and joining me, as always, the traveler of the Eldritch Path, Mr. Ken James.
Good evening.
So that was the opening paragraph of Celephaïs. Celephaïs. Yeah. There's many accepted.
I would imagine there was a lot of different accepted pronunciations of this word, because I first, when I read it, I was just like, I'm an idiot, because I'm in my head, I'm like, what are those dots? I'm like, like, what am I doing here?
What are they, umlaut? Yes, I mean, once again, it's a made up word by Lovecraft. I've heard Celephaïs, but it sounds like, I think you said cellophane. Yeah. So it's like Celephaïs sounds a little more exotic and made up. So we're gonna go with Celephaïs.
Am I gonna use this to preserve food? Is that what I'm doing here?
You could.
Food
if it's in the Dreamlands, it's gonna last forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dreamlands brand Tupperware. Think about it. Lasts forever.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks.
No, that's a good idea.
But before we jump into our main discussion here, we have another Transmissions from the Void. So, Ken, the AI world.
Yes.
Right? Things such as ChatGPT, all these crazy things.
Skynet.
Yeah. Well, now, just recently, in the last week or so, people have been making a different comparison between these AI models and Lovecraft's Shoggoth from At the Mountains of Madness, his indestructible monsters that we'll get to it. Yeah. So basically, the rundown of it, and there was a CNBC. Good for them. They published an article, and they talked to our friend St. Joshi.
No, they didn't.
They did.
The Josh man himself.
Absolutely.
Damn, jealous.
And there's a new meme going about where they use the Shoggoth as this representation of what AI is eventually going to turn into.
Oh.
That people think. Because I know we haven't gotten to the story yet, but a little bit of a spoiler alert, but not really.
Yeah.
The Shoggoths are these creatures that are created by the Elder Things, and eventually they overthrow their masters because they, over millennia, they evolve and are able to just completely destroy the Elder Things.
They're just done with it.
Yep. And what's interesting is that it's these creatures are these many tentacled, many eyeballed just masses, and they just grow and grow, and it's kind of been like, well, isn't that kind of like AI?
Yeah.
And this is the thing now, and it's kind of
me.
It is terrifying.
Yeah.
And what's kind of interesting is that, like, it's very much, like you said, Skynet. But this is more Lovecraftian, where it's like, it's just doom. Like, there's no John Connor. There's no one coming to help us.
Yeah, no one's coming to save you.
No, it's just forever doom.
No Arnold thumbs up going into the molten metal.
Nope, no fun antics when he gets his clothes, nothing.
Yep.
It's just...
No sick motorcycle semi-truck chase.
Nope.
In the aqueduct.
Nope. So I just thought it was fun to bring up. I mean, they go, the article goes on to talk about, where it came from, the origins of the story, and to not get into that before we actually get to the story. I'm just a little of a sum up that, that really is kind of the perfect creature to represent what AI is, because everyone's just adding to it, but not saying, well, where's this going?
Yeah.
Like, where are we going to end up? And then you have the AI apologists who are like, no, this is awesome. It's just progress for progress sake.
I find the most people that are like all about AI are the ones that are like, no, this will just do the work. I don't have to do work. This will do it.
Yeah.
Then it's like, then what do we need you for, pal?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And if it was designed to, like in the story at the Mountains Madness, the Elder Things didn't want to work anymore. They didn't want to build stuff. They wanted to devote themselves to culture, to art, to writing, to all their, their lofty pursuits.
They were just exhausted.
They were. They worked on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So they create these Shuggoths to do all their heavy lifting, literally, and it really does not work out for them.
Yeah. Talk about your all-time backfires.
Yeah, big time. Also, the human species descended from the same matter that Shuggoths were made from, but we'll get to that.
Not there yet.
Nope. But we were getting there. Yeah. So just thought I'd bring this up, and I just thought it was very interesting. The article goes a little bit more of a in-depth, exhaustive kind of analysis, as Joshi is wont to do, and we love him for. But just it was really cool that I have like alerts set up on my SMS for like anything Lovecraft. I was like, what is this? I was like, Shuggoths in my computer, and I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a digital Shuggoth.
Yes.
So just thought I would bring that up. So Ken, Dream Cities.
Yeah, man. Starting off, this was another one where I was getting a little fatigued with flowery language, and I had to keep I was like reading, and like I was getting kind of lost in description, and then I had to go back and reread lines. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yep.
And not to say that it's like the street or anything like that, but it's I just. At first, I kind of was like, what are we talking about here? Okay. But I knew that he was going, I knew that he was falling asleep and all this. But, just at first, it kind of became a tough read, if that makes sense.
Sure. No, I mean, there's a lot packed in there. It's short, but it's very dense, because there's a lot of information that you get, and there's a lot of ideas that you kind of have to stop and think about for a second before you continue.
Yeah.
There's a lot of savoring in here. And that first paragraph that we started off with, you get, it gets all laid out for you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you get this whole thing that it's like, hey, life, I don't like it, essentially. And that, maybe the things he was promised about adulthood didn't pan out.
Yeah.
Or maybe he just found it to be, I'd rather just sit in my room and write and dream.
Yeah.
And it's certainly a fascinating take on what happens when you get to a certain point in life, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think this. I was thinking of certain people. You know what I mean? I was thinking of people I know that kind of never made the leap.
Oh yeah.
A failure to launch, if you will.
Oh yeah, I know quite a few of those.
And that's what it kind of reminded me of a lot of the time. So
That's fair.
It's not that a lot of times I was mad at people that I know and not the story. You know what I mean?
I
so
get that.
Reading this, a lot of it, I was just like,
No, I get that.
And that's what kind of made it tough to get through. It wasn't so much that the story itself was not interesting or not good. It just because that's why. And another reason I had to keep going back and reading stuff, because I was in my head thinking about certain people who, and a couple that just become burdens on their family.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, wait, where am I at? I was like, all right, let me get back to the story.
Yes, and I want to touch on that because I have ideas on that as well. But before we dive into it, this was written in early November of 1920 and then first published in the May 1922 issue of The Rainbow. Not Taste the Rainbow.
I like Skittles. So.
Who doesn't? Remember when they had 30 different flavors?
I'll tell you what. The tropical Skittles
are awesome. They are.
And I like the zombie ones they do at Halloween.
Yes, there's a couple ones that are in there, they're sour or whatever.
Yeah,
That's good stuff.
It's good stuff. They good on Skittles.
Yeah. The Halloween ones are great. Halloween candy, folks. Who doesn't love it? So
welcome to Learning Lovecraft podcast, where we talk about Skittles.
Hey, Lovecraft loves sweets. We'll get into that later.
Yeah. It was rumored that he died with a bag of Skittles in his pocket.
Possibly.
That's what I heard. I don't know.
Yeah, so this is another story in that Dunsanian mode, but where this kind of like separates itself from like Beyond the Wall of Sleep or any of like the dry ones, I feel like this one had like a far more like personal note to it.
Yeah, so at first too, I was like, here we go with this Lord Dunsany bullshit again. Like that's what I was thinking at first.
I gotcha, sure.
And I was like, what is this guy having me read? You know, but like, but then you start to go, oh wait, okay. It is grounded in like he started painting kind of like the streets where he lived and like the place and all this stuff. I almost found myself less interested in the dream world, and more interested in the regular world.
Okay,
if that makes sense. And but I was like, I totally was picking up on the Dunsany vibes here.
Yes, and I think it's important to note that because me too. And when I reread this, I may have read this maybe once before,
right?
Maybe, and I was like, because some of these dream things and dream stuff, because this story very much informs later the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, which is going to have a lot of elements in this, but really fun ones. So I forget which ones were which. I'm like, wait, is this from this one? Is it because he has a lot of these similar ones? But then I was like, oh yeah, he starts to like trip on nostalgia for a little bit,
right.
And I'm like, okay, all right.
And there were that was a quote I never thought I would ever hear myself say. I was really picking up on the Dunsany vibes. Like what? Where?
Hey,
who am I?
Hey, look at us. Huh?
Yeah.
Folks have called this story whiny. All right. And yes, but I also kind of disagree because I think there's some layered things in here about Lovecraft himself where it differs from the previous stories that I mentioned, which we will get to. So, so let's dive into it.
Yes.
So our story follows the dreams of an unnamed narrator who has in dream been given the name Kuranes.
How do we know that his name in the real world isn't narrator? Do you ever think of that?
We don't know that, but this is the Lovecraft version of a street name. You have a dream name.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yes.
How do you think this guy would fare against Freddy Krueger?
This guy is soft. I'm sorry. Freddy's...
Or do you think Freddy would come and be like, never mind?
Yeah.
He'd see all the beautiful cities. He'd be like, yeah, never mind.
It's too bright in here, bitch.
So, like...
He'd do that thing where he, like, taps his face,
Yep. So, Kuranes has found that life is devoid of splendor and that true beauty can only be found in dreams, right?
Ugh.
Yeah, he got there.
Yeah.
But, and like we said in the beginning, what he wrote was laughed at when he showed it to people, and because of that, he just kept it to himself. He became that guy that was like, scrolling on stuff and like sitting by himself at lunch, like...
Yeah, because most people he's shown this stuff, right? And they're like, dude, get a job.
Yeah, they just flip the book out of his hand.
Yeah.
What the fuck is this? Yeah, I've known this guy, trust me.
Yeah.
But then the more he withdraws from the world, the more, he says, more wonderful became his dreams. And at that point...
They call that an echo chamber.
Yes. And at that point, he couldn't even put it on paper. It was so...
It was such splendor. And it was so divine in his own, mind.
Yes.
That how could I even put this into words? How beautiful it is.
Yep. And even so, no one's ever written stuff like this. It's beautiful.
These guys, I can't.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, folks. And he even describes himself as not being a modern at all. He didn't even think like these other people who consider themselves writers in this day.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, and then we get a couple lines here, because I was with you. Like, I was like, you know what? Having not read this in a long time, I was like, you know what? This is starting to get on my nerves too. But then we get hit with a couple lines here where he says that they strove to strip life from its embroidered robes of myth and to show in naked ugliness the foul thing that is reality. He's just seeking for beauty alone. Now, forget the fact that we're talking about maybe failure to launch guys, right?
Yeah.
Include everybody in this.
Yeah.
All right. And then you can think about when he says things like, when truth and experience failed to reveal it, he sought in it fancy and illusion and found on his very doorstep amid the nebulous memories of childhood tales and dreams. Dude, he's talking about nostalgia. When things get this room, surrounded by nostalgia, because you people do, no matter what your status is or what you have done or achieved or what part in your life is. I feel that maybe not everybody, but folks definitely do retreat into nostalgia sometimes. So it's like,
Absolutely.
oh, look at that. It's like, that was a safe time.
I think it's a very important thing, nostalgia, but also because nostalgia actually it can drive you. A big thing that I realized when I was like my mid-20s, going forward just in life, it was manage your distractions. That's what I always say. Manage your distractions, and nostalgia. It can either be a great tool or a great distraction. Sure. So you have to manage it and when, know when to use your distractions and know when to throw them aside. Right? Because everyone needs their, clearing out of your brain. You need to decompress. You need to shut down. Yeah. And one of my distractions, I'll go back and I'll now, especially with Paramount Plus, I'll go back and watch Nick Arcade, Legends of the Hidden Temple, stuff like that.
Those games,
dude, they're on Paramount Plus. I'll watch Guts, and the nostalgia's great. And you go and that's cool. I mean, you're like, well, it's just a thing,
Yeah.
Using it as a tool to decompress at times, but not letting it consume you.
Yeah.
So absolutely, people definitely will get lost in nostalgia. Everyone does, because even now, people only listen to the music that was popular when they were young.
For sure.
It's just how people always are. But the problem is too, it's like you got to know when to go. There's other stuff.
Yeah. You need to open the door, let some fresh air in sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
Also, speaking of this, I was reminded of there's this concept in Japanese culture. It's called mono no aware. All right, and this means mono means thing, aware means feeling or sentiment, and no indicates something, an object or something that someone can possess or inhabit. So this concept signifies the deep feeling or pathos of things, the powerful emotions that objects can evoke or instill in us. It is often associated with a poignant feeling of transience, a beautiful sadness in the passing of lives and objects, something like the glorious color of autumn leaves as they are about to fall. And that
is glorious.
Yeah. So there's this bitter sweetness of nostalgia that they kind of very much focus on, that we don't really have they have a word for it. We don't have people say nostalgia, but it can mean so many things. Like what we just spoke about. Yeah. And I think there's something to this concept, this Japanese concept, that's very much embedded in this story, that it's like nostalgia is great, but it's always bittersweet.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. The American concept of that is it's just the ride, man. It's the ride of life, man.
That, but then you'll also hear, man, I wish I could just go back to the 80s.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's that kind of stuff.
Well, I meant the bittersweetness of it. When you accept that when you're accepting of it's gone. Yeah. But it's still sweet to think about it. Yeah. It's like a Bob Seger song. Yeah. It's that all is that feeling for me. Right. You go back to Night Move, stuff like that. All his kind of stuff is nostalgia, right?
Yeah,
it's and it holds that weird feeling. You get that weird tingle sometimes. Yeah. It's the ride, man.
Yeah. But I think it also depends on the depth of that nostalgia.
Sure.
So let's say you're nostalgic for, the New York City skyline of the early or the late 1990s.
Yeah.
And then there is nostalgia there. Hey, remember we went to Windows on the World, and then you just sit there and flashback for 2000.
You're like that meme of the dog.
Yeah.
When fireworks.
Exactly. And then that is nostalgia, but then it's it's a big nostalgia here, but then it's almost like the pain of it, kind of
yeah.
And it's just. That's a very interesting concept to me, and I remember hearing about that, and I was like, what, that's that thing, and I had to re-look it up, and then I was just like, yeah, that's very much what he's kind of talking about here. So just something I thought was interesting.
See, yeah, but that takes on its own kind of, I guess, there's segments in this story where it's that was a poignant point, but then we go back to talking about this guy. And it's just
yeah, and yes, but I think that this story is a thinly veiled autobiography once again about how he feels about stuff and how he feels that not into this, he's not into this this version of the world, and I find the strongest points of this is when he starts talking about the Dream City stuff, and it's you could tell this is this guy's this is where he goes. And in Collateral, when Jamie Foxx flips down the picture of the island, he's I go on vacation every day. This is kind of his version of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. There are not many persons who know what wonders are open to them in the stories and visions of their youth. For when as children we listen and dream, we think but half-formed thoughts, and when as men we try to remember, we are dulled and prosaic with the poison of life. But some of us awake in the night with strange phantasms of enchanted hills and gardens, of fountains that sing in the sun, of golden cliffs overhanging murmuring seas, of plains that stretch down to sleeping cities of bronze and stone, and of shadowy companies of heroes that ride caparison, white horses along the edges of thick forests. And then we know that we have looked back through the ivory gates into that world of wonder, which was ours before we were wise and unhappy.
That kind of just doubles down on it.
I like that the wise, before we were wise and unhappy.
Yeah,
I like that a lot because with knowledge and wisdom, you understand that things aren't good. You know what I mean? Like, you make things good, but things aren't good.
Right, and that's why you have these people retreat into these nostalgic places. And also when he mentions that when we're dulled and prosaic with the poison of life, and that really, you're poisoned by life if you think about it. It's a slow poisoning death, and you get to a point where it's just like, ugh. And I feel that in this story, and I think this story maybe feels different to whoever's reading it. I guess all stories do, depending on what your relationship is with this kind of stuff. I guess you're going to have a different outcome with this. So
it's just a ride, man.
Hey, he gets a ride at the end. So Kirani's dreams of his old world childhood, the ancestral home where he was born, where 13 generations of his ancestors lived, and he also wishes to die there someday. It's it sounds nice. So that in this dream at night, he goes through this. It's this fragrant summer night. He talks about the gardens, the terraces, the great oaks, and this white road to this village.
Flowery descriptions.
Very flat. Yes, so we're back to this. We're in the Dunsanian mode for sure. The village seemed very old, and it was eaten away, and it was a very strange kind of like look to him. He's like, it's prosaic, but at the same time, he felt like maybe it was laced with menace a little bit. He wasn't really sure. But he could feel this pull, right? He says he feels this pull. He doesn't know where, but he has to keep going.
Yeah.
Right? So we get this next passage.
Then he had been drawn down a lane that led off from the village street toward the Channel Cliffs, and had come to the end of things, to the precipice and the abyss where all the village and all the world fell abruptly into the UN-echoing emptiness of infinity, and where even the sky ahead was empty and unlit by the crumbling moon and the peering stars. Faith had urged him on, over the precipice and into the gulf, where he had floated down, 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 past dark, shapeless, undreamed dreams, faintly glowing spheres that may have been partly dreamed dreams, and laughing winged things that seemed to mock the dreamers of all the worlds. Then a rift seemed to open in the darkness before him, and he saw the city of the valley, glistening radiantly far, far below, with a background of sea and sky, and a snow-capped mountain near the shore.
I thought it was going to get sinister there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this could, we might have a labyrinth situation on our hands here.
Right.
And I was thinking about the winged things that were like, and he's like, like Bill and Ted Part 2.
There's kind of like almost like an afterlife kind of thing starting here, where it's like he comes to this point and then everything kind of like comes apart almost. It's like very primordial, like half-formed dreams, these creatures that are laughing winged things that seem to mock the dreamers. Like it's that there's this whole thing going on, but then this rift opens up out of the darkness and he sees the city that he's been looking for. What's up?
I'm just laughing at the winged creatures like mocking like the tree, like you smell, like as they're falling.
You call that a dream?
Yeah. Wake up, fat boy.
Is that your best nightcap?
Yeah. What's up, Ebenezer Scrooge?
Yeah, I was going to say, exactly. That's the outfit he's wearing. The slippers, the nightgown, and the candle.
That's what I pictured this whole time.
Perfect.
Just Ebenezer Scrooge, like, in his night garb, maybe with an extra, like jacket over it,
Right.
Like the Mickey's Christmas Carol version, with... Right. But, like, a man
but not a duck. Not a duck. Okay.
And he's just like going up to people, look at my story.
Right. So after he has this vision in his dream, he instantly wakes up upon seeing the city, and then he's there. This is Celephaïs in the valley of Uthnar-Gai, beyond the Tenarian Hills.
Uthnar-Gai sounds like if someone's like doing something, you go, Uthnar-Gai.
Right.
Let me just, let me interject. Oh, Uthnar-Gai. Like, that's like a calm down, like, hold on, I got you.
Right. First you Uthnar-Gai, then you Narfel the Garth.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Uthnar-Gai, we're going to Narfel the Garth. It's going to happen.
Perfect. And this is where he describes where his spirit had dwelt all the eternity of an hour, one summer afternoon very long ago. And after he has this experience, he's like overwhelmed because it's like he sees it, but then gets pulled away from it.
Right.
And he's been searching for this for 40 years or so, and now he's like upset that he found it, but he's never going to find it again.
Yeah.
Right. So
starts chasing the dragon.
Oh yeah. So and literally because nothing happens, but then 3 nights later he dreams of Celephaïs again. And, once again, same kind of thing. He comes out in this area. He has to walk through the village again. The same kind of, rift happens, and then there's the city, and then he sees the galleys, the graceful galleys riding. The whole scene is there. But this time he doesn't get snatched away, and he's able to come into this this beautiful sunlit city.
And he himself lands like one of the birds.
Very, very, very light.
Yeah, I was like,
You can hear the harps
Yeah.
and the singing in the background, which they literally say is a thing. So he walks around and he sees that nothing has changed since the last time he left. Right, nothing is old or ruined. He even sees his name that he carved on a small wooden bridge. Like he carved he's like, it's my dream name. It's my street name.
Yeah, it's tagging. That he was tagging.
Yeah. They were okay with it.
Yeah.
Even the sentries on the ramparts were the same. Still as young, and they all remembered him. Merchants in the city and the camel drivers, they all greeted him. And then he goes past this turquoise temple of Nath Horthath, where the orchid-wreathed priests told him there is no time.
Nath Horthath.
Right. There is no time in Uthnar-Gai, but only perpetual youth.
Uthnar-Gai, Nath Horthath.
You can only say those words for the next week. That's how you have to communicate everything.
Yeah, I gotta hopefully I remember them.
You have to change your intonation.
Yeah. Nathar-Gai.
Right. So then Kiranes walks through the street of pillars to this wall near the sea, where there's all these sailors gathered, and he talks about this. It's the region where the sea meets the sky, right?
Yeah.
And he stays there long, and he's gazing over this harbor, and it's gorgeous. Everyone loves it. Everyone loves it. And then he sees the mountain. It's the whole thing. I mean, it's this just incredible, just
at this point. It's a musical. Like you
it's
picture the scene of him in his own mind. He's like, "Hey, villager," and they're going like, "Hey, look who it is!"
Kind of. Yep, but a little more ancient Greek or something. And
Nick
then
Castellanos?
Maybe he might be. He's there. Everybody looks like Nick Castellanos from the Phillies in the story. Everybody.
That's a hot town.
They all can play too.
Yeah, right.
Just a city of all-stars. Sorry, folks. And then he gets on one of these ships, and he takes this journey through the sky and clouds to literally like a cloud city. Seranian.
Yeah, right. Well, now at this point in the story, my mind started traveling, and I was thinking of what it would be like for a director and how to make this shot from going from the water to the transition to the sky.
Yes.
And I pictured how you would have to do it, right? Top aerial view, boats going down, right? So it's just like you're keeping up with it. It's centered in.
Yeah.
It zooms in, and as it gets closer, it goes to the reflection in the water. It zooms in, and then it comes back out and zooms out. And then it's in the sky. You'd have to do it like that.
I like it.
That's just how, like, my mind, I was like, that's how you would have to direct that.
You hear that, Hollywood? You owe Ken some money.
Yeah.
When you make your Celephaïs motion picture.
This is like, you know what's funny?
What's that?
This is the one Hollywood would pick.
Probably, because there's so much...
Starring Robin Williams.
Oh, yeah, because he did, what was that? What Dreams May Come. Yeah, kind of, yeah. He's dead. I don't know if you knew that.
What?
Something that kind of reminded me here. Remember the white ship? They had the flying ship?
Yes.
Like,
Oh,
I wonder
yeah.
if he was like linking the two, like this is like
Yeah.
if he's like, because if this is like a Lovecraft like sort of autobiography, thinly veiled kind of thing, was he thinking like, oh, I'm gonna pull in from that story, and then these are those. That's the same ship of people.
My mind went there because I went back to what I said when I was thinking of the bird.
Yeah.
How the bird was like his. That's like his. What was the word I was looking? I used? Like that was his attention. His attention was the bird, and it was leading him. Like that's what he was. His interests were that.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that at this point.
Right.
And I was like, this is kind of the same deal.
Yeah.
And I was like, don't really care for it.
Yeah, and you know what? I think this is also he's working the same themes, because you'll see he returns to themes, because I think he maybe went back to stories or just had these ideas. He's like, I just didn't get there yet,
Yeah.
and he's still like, okay, let's try to try to like solidify this into a better mode.
It's early on, and like I'm not. I got kind of like spoiled with the tomb, like off the bat, and like stuff like that. I was like, ooh,
No. There's more of that coming.
I know, but what I'm saying is like, I was like, ooh, a good old fat, like
Yeah.
It was like, ooh, and like then we went to Dagon. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go riff, but like I was like, I was like, oh man, yeah, and then like. Then I forgot that there is going to be these speed bumps along the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they are speed bumps, but you also have to realize that like these are the things that are helping him refine his writing.
I meant speed bumps for me.
Oh no, they
not
are.
for him. Like I mean,
they're speed bumps for me because
sure, yeah.
Some of these stories is like I know even more for me, because I'm like I know where we're going. I don't need to read this again.
Yeah.
I am enjoying reading them again,
Right.
but it's like I know where this is going, so it's just like okay. But it's a re-education for me too, because it kind of like reinforces some things that I already knew.
Yeah.
But so he's at this cloud city, right? And it's this pink marble city of the clouds, and it's built on that ethereal coast where the west wind flows into the sky.
Yeah, and he walks into this dining room, and Darth Vader's there.
Yep.
And he pulls his blaster. And, yeah. It was crazy.
It was.
Lando.
Yeah. Lobot used to freak me out when I was a kid. I was like, is he a robot? Is he an android? Is he a slave? Like, what is he? Like, he controls his thoughts. What is that guy?
Yeah.
Like, when I was a kid, that character legit freaked me out. I couldn't even, like, look when he was on screen.
Did he even like talk?
No. And I was like, but when I was a kid, the thing that bugged me was like, is he in pain? That used to be the thing for me. I was like, does that hurt when Lando, like, calls him? Like, I don't know why I thought of that. Really weird.
Okay.
I don't know.
Are you? I'm not like going, are you okay? Are you okay? You good?
Oh, yeah. I'm good.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, just, it made me think of that. And for some reason, the Cloud City scenes when I was a kid, like Lobot
Really
used to
bugged me?
freak me out.
It's funny you say that. I used to get freaked out when Luke was hanging from the bottom of Cloud City.
Yeah, only one hand.
I loved the visuals, and I always loved like mechanical stuff as a kid, and I loved like the things that he was holding on to.
Yeah.
But like it freaked me out that I'm like, dude, get there! Like someone get there now.
Luke. Ben, why didn't you tell me? Yeah, it's a banger. This is not the Star Wars podcast.
Yeah,
that's
sorry.
later.
That's our third one.
That's our third one, yeah. When we've really come off the rails. So then he sees the highest point of this cloud city. I can't call it anything else. It's a cloud city.
Yeah.
And when they finally come into sight, he hears this weird sound somewhere out in space, and then bam, he wakes up in his body back in London, in his apartment.
Yeah.
Poor guy. He was almost there. He was right there.
Yeah.
He was right there.
That's right there.
Yep. And this is where
I was out.
and this is where it kind of takes like a not so great turn for our guy here for Mr. Dream City.
This is where it pulled me back in.
Yeah, because this is the cool part.
Yeah.
Because this is where we start to get some really weird stuff.
Yeah.
So many months pass, and he cannot reach Celephaïs again, no matter what he does. He's venturing to other areas of Dreamlands. And when he goes to these other areas, he asks all these places where he goes. He's like, "Hey, do you know where I could get to Celephaïs or the Valley of Uthnar Guy?" Like, no one's ever heard of it. They're like, they're like, whoa, whoa, we don't say that around here.
It's like, whoa, what did you say to me?
And then there's a cool passage where like he talks about this mountainous area with this long wall atop these mountain ridges, and that's, to me, I was like, is this the Great Wall of China?
Maybe.
Kind of like a dreamland version.
Yeah.
And then a land beyond of quaint gardens and cherry trees. When the sun rose, he beheld the beauty of the red and white flowers and foliage and white paths and these red roof pagodas. I was like, is he talking about Japan? Because it's beyond.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting too, because like the Dreamlands seem to almost be like an exaggerated version of reality, or like an exploded version of reality, where let's say in life, here's this city, it's a 4x4 square, this is what exists in it, but in the Dreamlands you have an 8x8 square and it has all these other things and you can add on to it all the time. It's almost like reality's the basis, and then in the Dreamlands you have like this,
besides the colors he describes anytime he's like talking about the Dreamland, and it annoyed me that this was happening in my brain. All I was picturing, the colors were like light blues, purples and pinks, and I was like, I don't like that color pattern. And
interesting.
For some, that's where
I get gold, like a golden warm colors.
You would think.
That's what I get. Like that last scene of Ghost of Tsushima, like that. Like those are the colors I get.
Yeah, but see, when the way he's like,
if you haven't played it, folks, you should play that.
The way he's describing it, for some weird reason, for me, that's the colors that I'm getting from his words.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Totally. Hey, that's what you're gonna get. I mean, it's
and like I said, I'm like, why am I don't like this? Is how it like it's being shown to me in my mind's movie theater.
Yeah. Sorry, man.
The next story.
Hold on.
Those colors. Yeah. But anyway. Yeah.
He also finds a dead city, and this was kind of cool because he says that it's as it has lain since King Kynarathalis.
Yes.
King Kynarathalis, I'll go with that, came home from his conquest to find the vengeance of the gods, and then just leaves it. It's like, okay.
Yeah, well, once again, it's like, are these all the cities that are like off the coast from the White Ship? You know what I mean? Just like different descriptions, like because he
possibly
talks about them a little bit from, because you can't go there, you can't go here.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I mean, this could be a suggestion of Sarnath. Who knows?
Right.
I mean, it's just. It's vague enough where you have those questions. That's very common. Actually, it's almost like everybody has these things, because he gives you these little bits of things, and he does it more as time goes on. You're like, is he talking about this?
Yeah.
And then sometimes he'll be like, yeah, I'm talking about this. You're like, wait, so these are connected? And then like you're like, that happens later on. He's already he's on his bullshit already.
Yeah.
So we get this next passage.
So Kuranes sought fruitlessly for the marvelous city of Celephaïs and its galleys that sailed to Seranion in the sky. Meanwhile, seeing many wonders and once barely escaping from the high priest not to be described, which wears a yellow silken mask over its face and dwells all alone in a prehistoric stone monastery on the cold desert plateau of Leng.
Ken, we've arrived. Now, this character, this is before some of his big characters have been created. So a lot of people will come back to this, and I just...
Is this, well, I was thinking, is this the Yellow King or whatever?
So I'm glad you said that. The Yellow King is not a creation of Lovecraft. The Yellow King is a creation...
Is this... Okay, sorry.
The Yellow King is a creation of Robert Chambers. Lovecraft did not read The King in Yellow until 1927. This is 1920.
Okay.
So the fact that it has this yellow mask is interesting, because he hadn't read it yet. Also, this character kind of has aspects of Nyarlathotep, which we're getting to 2 stories from now. The Crawling Chaos, the God of 1,000 Forms. There's no spoilers. I'm taking this ride. You tell me what to read. I read it. I read nothing else. This is like foreshadowing for Nyarlathotep is... Compared to Nyarlathotep, Cthulhu's nothing. All right?
I know who Cthulhu is.
Yeah, and we'll get to that too. But we actually have the story of Nyarlathotep coming up, I think in 2 stories from now. Yes. Sorry.
I know you're excited. Like I said,
so excited.
I'm no spoiler in it. I'm just I'm going.
Yep.
You point.
Yep.
I read.
Yep. So we're going to run into this exact character, this form, whatever this character is, who it is, because it's never exactly... He never exactly names who this is specifically, but we run into him again in, once again, the Dream Quest of Onan Kodath. A lot of folks think it could be an avatar of Nyarlathotep. Other folks kind of like in hindsight say, oh, that's the King in Yellow, but it couldn't have been because he hadn't read it yet. But you could go back and say, okay, well, let's make it that, because years later, folks who were writing in the Cthulhu mythos, specifically August Derleth, they took they took the King in Yellow, renamed him Hastur, and then kind of put him around and said, oh, he's this, he's this, he's this. And it wasn't really something that Lovecraft really intended at the time, but we will get to all that.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, like, there's this guy in the South.
Yeah.
And he's following all these teachings. He's doing all this stuff to these people. And
It happens, man.
then Rust Colt. No.
Yeah. Hey, man, it all started here.
Yeah. Right.
Kind of. Not really. But this is interesting because we get this character, which immediately having this character in the story, I forgot he was in here. I was like, oh man, I thought he was just in Dream Quest, and I was reading it, and then they mentioned the Plateau of Leng, which I'm just going to mention it. That's it. It's the Plateau of Leng. We'll get to it.
All Greek to me, my friend.
Yep. This will also appear in Dream Quest, but also in many other stories. So just know that this was... We're going to call back to this.
Okay.
All right? And this, just rereading that just made me happy. I'm just
I
like,
saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a glow. You're glowing right now. You know how pregnant women have the glow?
Yeah.
You have like
I look
that...
like a pregnant woman right now.
No, you
Cheers.
have the glow. You have the glow.
All right, yeah.
Dude, that's one of the best compliments a man could give another man.
It's true. That's true. It's not just the
You
Nora
are
High
the
life.
last
It's-
dragon. You possess the power of the glow.
Wow. Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome, buddy.
Moving right along. So Kiranes becomes so desperate at this point that he begins taking drugs.
Do you think he took pot at all?
You mean hashish?
Yeah, do you think he took hashish?
Do you think he did the pot?
Yeah.
Well, he does, and he uses it to go into these deeper states of sleep because he's like, "Oh, look, I gotta get back there. I gotta go there. Gotta go there."
He's Alex Jones all of a sudden.
Basically. And on one of the times that he took it, it sent him to this part, and this is great. It sends him to this part of space where form does not exist, but where glowing gases study the secrets of existence.
I liked this. Yeah.
Colorado space.
Yeah.
And a violet-colored gas told him that this part of space was outside what he had called infinity.
I liked that the gas told him. I was like, all right, now I'm like, yeah.
There's going to be a lot more of
Yes.
this.
Well, that's the stuff I like, because that's the stuff, too, that, like, in my head,
Yeah.
when I think of, like, celestial bodies, heavenly bodies, all these different things, it's like...
Because this is where we get into this Lovecraftian conception of what an alien is. Why would an alien have a humanoid form?
Right.
Why couldn't it be, exactly, a gas that studies the secrets of existence?
Right.
That's an alien.
Yeah.
You know, and from a different side of infinity where it's like they say that the gas had not heard of planets and organisms before, but identified Kiranes merely as one of the infinity where matter, energy, and gravitation exist.
Okay, what we're thinking of as aliens are they're extra dimensional beings.
He increases the dose of the drugs, and this does no good. It doesn't help him anymore, and he literally runs through all his cash, and then he gets evicted from his apartment, or his flat, because we're in London. And
His flat. He gets evicted from his flat.
and then he begins to wander aimlessly through the streets. And this is where it starts to fall apart, but also get better for him.
At this point, it's like a montage and Dream On's playing, but at that heavy point, that Dream On! You know, and he's just like wandering and the camera's like shaking.
Yeah. So out of nowhere, this cortege is the word he used, and this is kind of interesting, of knights from Celephaïs shows up. And now I looked up this word. I was like, so what exactly does that mean? And it means a solemn procession, especially for a funeral. So he tipped us off right there.
Yeah. You didn't know what that meant?
No, I did not. Sorry, man. I still need a dictionary for Lovecraft sometimes.
I'm kidding.
And he describes these handsome knights on these big horses, clad in shining armor, and then with these, golden vestments.
All Nick Castellanos. And...
All of them.
Yeah.
Yep. With blonde hair for some reason. And then there were so many of them, he thought it was an army that were like coming to get him, but they were like, no. Like the leader comes up to him, he's like, no, this is for you. Yeah. Gives him a horse and says, you created Uth-Nargai in your dreams, and now you're going to be appointed the chief god forever.
Yeah.
All right.
This is Lovecraft at this point going like, this is what awaits me.
Yeah. He's like,
all you people that hated on me, this is where I'm going.
quite possible.
Yeah.
So they give him this horse, and he goes to the head of this procession, and they ride towards this ancestral home that we mentioned in the beginning. But as they ride, it looks as though things are going back in time, right?
Yeah.
So we get this passage.
When it grew dark, they traveled more swiftly, till soon they were flying uncannily as if in the air. In the dim dawn, they came upon the village which Karains had seen alive in his childhood and asleep or dead in his dream. It was alive now, and early villagers courtesied as the horsemen clattered down the street and turned off into the lane that ends in the abyss of dream. Karains had previously entered that abyss only at night, and wondered what it would look like by day. So he watched anxiously as the column approached its brink. Just as they galloped up the rising ground to the precipice, a golden glare came somewhere out of the east and hid all the landscape in its effulgent draperies. The abyss was now a seething chaos of roseate and cerulean splendor, and invisible voices sang exultantly as the nightly entourage plunged over the edge and floated gracefully down past glittering clouds and silvery coruscations. Endlessly down the horsemen floated, their chargers pawing the aether as if galloping over golden sands. And then the luminous vapor spread apart to reveal a greater brightness, the brightness of the city Celephaïs and the seacoast beyond, and the snowy peak overlooking the sea, and the seacoast beyond, and the snowy peak overlooking the sea, and the gaily painted galleys that sail out of the harbor toward distant regions where the sea meets the sky.
So he made it.
I was just, at this point when I was reading this, I was like, just say he died.
Yeah, well...
Just say he died.
But he wants that splendor. You know what I mean? Like, this is him entering Valhalla, basically.
I'm not really saying that, but like, I'm just
but
like...
for Valhalla, for people who just sit inside and read.
Yeah.
And write.
Right. Yeah. Not a warrior's death. No. They met him in the street, you know? He was stumbling around like, I need money for hashish. You know, and they're like, get away, bum. And someone probably pushed him.
Kicked him off the cliff?
And no, someone just pushed him over, and he fell and died. That's what I think happened.
He did fall off of a cliff.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Right.
But now in the Dreamlands, Kiranes is now king for all time in the region of Uthnar and the neighboring regions of Dream, and held his court alternately in Celephaïs and in the cloud-fashioned Saranian. So he's just, that's his jam. He's the king there.
He's the god there forever.
Yeah. So we get this last passage, and I think this sums it up nicely.
He reigns there still and will reign happily forever, though below the cliffs at Innsmouth the channel tides played mockingly with the body of a tramp who had stumbled through the half-deserted village at dawn, played mockingly and cast it upon the rocks by ivy-covered Trevor Towers, where a notably fat and especially offensive millionaire brewer enjoys the purchased atmosphere of extinct nobility.
So yeah, in his delusion, he wanders through the town and falls off one of the cliffs that they mentioned earlier and dies at the bottom.
Okay.
And his corpse is basically just found down there, right? Two things here. His family estate seems to be purchased by this millionaire brewer, who is just some big fat guy, and now he's purchased the atmosphere of extinct nobility. So he just bought the old home because it was there vacant because this guy was just gone.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I didn't get that last passage.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell is going on?
He got too flowery, and it's hard to. It's a little hard to suss out. But what it means,
yeah, and like he like kind of did this like spinny pile-on talk there, and I'm like,
a little bit.
I'm like, who's this fat guy doing? What is he?
Yeah. So basically, what he's saying is that, like I said,
you explain it now. Now I get it.
Yep. He bought it, and he's just there, and he's like, "Oh, I love this house," and he dies. And it's kind of interesting that he near the channel tides of Innsmouth. Now, this is interesting because this is the first time Lovecraft ever used Innsmouth, but this is not Innsmouth that we will know later because this is in London. Innsmouth is in Massachusetts.
Right. So when I was reading this, I was like, oh, I know that word. Yeah. You know, I've known Jay for a the long time.
He's playing with the names.
Right.
He pulled out Innsmouth. This is the first time he used Innsmouth, which is interesting.
Right.
The next time we hear it, it'll be a little more solidified because the town doesn't show up till the story, which is not till years later.
Well, and too, at this point, also like at that wrap up. Yeah. It was like he got his dream, he's there, he's the god of, ruling over everything.
Yeah.
but he had to put in that little like, some fat guy's probably gonna buy my house, some stinky, stupid fat guy. You know, like
He's not writing there. He's probably having parties with people.
yeah, he's just gonna, what is he? He's a brewer. He brews beer. Stupid, stinky beer. He brews. You know, like that's what. That's how I took that at the end.
No,
that
is what he's saying, and depending on how you view the story, you can. This is why people call it whiny, because yes, it is whiny.
It's totally a brat story.
It is a brat story, but there are parts that I think have quality and have value.
I think that's what, like when I was saying, there's certain parts that pull me back in, but there are the best parts of this are those little lessons that it just boom. It's like as you go, you get this nice circle of like, this is a cool thing. Then you go through the story. Here's a cool thing.
These little nuggets strewn about that are like, okay, like you could tell that he either like he had these ideas, and he kind of strung the story around it a little bit. He you know, clearly, like we've talked about in previous stories, Lovecraft's childhood was awesome. He had a great time, but things started to fall apart, and now he very much looks back to those things, and this is not something that's going to stop anytime soon in his writing. So. But he gets much better at it and puts it together with these other elements, and you're like, oh, okay, works much better. But I think he's starting to go in this other direction, like we just mentioned with like the gases talking about the secrets of the universe or whatever. We're getting to that direction, and even more so, I think he really liked that paragraph too, because the next story he really goes in that direction. And kind of completely drops all the flowery stuff completely, and it's really interesting. But we'll get to that with the next episode. What'd you think of it? I mean, obviously, you thought it was a whiny story, but as far as like, here we are, 15 stories in or so. What Yeah, it didn't like it for the parts that like turned me off while reading it. Like it still got me through. There was things that got me through, but I also said I like the little nuggets that are in there and things where it's like, oh, that's a cool thing. And him, obviously, like you said, writing around those things to get to that end where he's just like, stupid fat guy buys my house. I'm dead. But it doesn't matter because I'm in my kingdom as Maybe
God.
He doesn't even know. I mean, he might not even know. This is the story being told to us. Like, that's what happened to his house. And I don't think he would even care at this point because now he has his ultimate existence.
Yeah, but I'm talking about HP. I'm not talking about the character.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about HP himself.
He would.
That's like, he's writing this as like a way of like, and he could have wrapped it up with getting there.
Yeah.
And then I thought that last part, I was like, it's kind of out of place. That's kind of like,
it is. He kind of has to.
In there.
I think he just wants to. I think he wants to very much bookend it with it's like, Karanis is dead. He doesn't even have a name anymore. Even from the beginning, he didn't have a game. So, I mean, he was already detached from reality to begin with. But he's dead. His ancestry is gone. His house isn't even in his family anymore. It's just over. Like, and to the point of the fact where he fell off a cliff and his body was found washed up. Yeah. And a tramp, they even called. They didn't even know who it was because at that point he had no money. He'd been evicted. He had just completely given over to the.
They won't even care when I'm gone.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean.
Please tell Mom this is not her fault. Sorry.
Yeah.
Little Blink-182-ish right
there.
Oof. It is. There is some definite cringe.
I don't know how to feel about this one.
And you know what? I think that's the mark of a story that just didn't hit the mark. Because when you read a story that hits the mark, you know how you feel. You're like, this was like this, or something that's not even, because this is a halfway story almost, because you have, like you said, the parts that you talk about. I don't know how to feel because it's,
yeah, like, because like there's some things that have merit and there's other things that I'm just like, shut up, dude. As the layman here, that's where I got to the point where I was like, next page, all right, cool story, bro.
Yep.
Tell your story walking, Howard. That's what I wanted to say with this one.
Whoa.
Yeah,
you're not the only one that thought it was a bit whiny or just kind of not that great.
Yeah.
In a book we pull from often, The Tour to Lovecraft by Ken Hite, he literally calls the tale whiny. And I can see exactly what he means.
Yeah.
This, just like other stories that, HPL's written, I mean, this once again came from a dream. He had a dream of flying over a city. And he pulled it from there, but we could tell that there was a lot more that was put in there. This apparently was pulled almost, not directly, but heavy influence by Dunsany once again. A story called The Coronation of Mr. Thomas Shapp. Okay. And then there's also, they say it also drew some inspiration from the Ambrose Bierce story, A Horseman in the Sky. That actually sounds pretty awesome. I've never read it. Where a man who sees a horse flying through the air after he shoots the rider, but then it proves that the rider was his own father. Ambrose Bierce has some pretty cool shit. So it's Joshi also goes on to say that this, he's going to return to this kind of mode of writing for Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, but it's a lot more fun, and the whininess is kind of taken out, and there's not this, I got to get back to it's a lot of fun. So
Yeah, man.
it has an Oz quality to it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So,
It's kind of cool.
it is kind of cool. But I mean, that's all I got for Celephaïs.
You're not my favorite.
Hey, I totally get it. It's
Stupid.
especially when you read the story after this, you're like, I don't think this.
Yeah. That was. I was like, thank God.
All right, well, I guess that's all it's been fit to print for Celephaïs. I've been your host, Jason McKittrick,
And I've been Ken James.
and we'll see you on the other side of sleep.